our next guest speaker and a Stinson driver is John Chargo with uAvionix, and he's going to give us a little info on some of their products. You want to take it away, John?
Sure, thanks. Feel free to interrupt me with questions as we go. I've got kind of a rough talk I'll go through, but discussion is absolutely fine. I thought I'd just talk through some of the upgrades I did for my Stinson, weaving in some of the company products that we're using as we go. So I got my PPL in 2013. Spent many years just flying flight school rentals and of varying quality and vintage, and finally bought my own plane in 2021. Got a 108-2. Flew it out of New York to Iowa and been loving it. It's been an amazing airplane for me. Fly with my wife, got two daughters that fly. You can fit 2 car seats in the back of a 108-2. It's tight, but it does work. My wife also got her private pilot a couple years ago as well. Haven't gotten her transition to tailwheel yet, but it's coming. I've kind of always been an aviation geek and a computer geek, and working in avionics kind of was the natural fit. Out of college, I worked for Collins or Rockwell Collins or Collins Radio, doing a lot of military avionics. So there's kind of one of my baby. It's a KC-390 made by Embraer. It's a multi-mode tanker. Worked on a lot of KC-135, KC-10, the Black Hawk, the Chinook. When I left Collins, I was leading an effort to fix the refueling cameras on the KC-46. That's still in the news. I'm not sure it's fixed yet, but anyways, left Collins, did some stuff out in Silicon Valley doing autonomous airplanes, and then looking for a change and the opportunity to get involved with light GA. I was like, I'm flying this stuff. I spend my free time doing light airplane stuff. Like, hey, can I make this a job? I kind of started hitting up some companies whose products I'd used, and I had tail beacon on my airplane. I was like, hey, uAvionix. Anyways, been there for about a year and a half. uAvionix was founded in 2015. Really started as, several years ago, there was this premise that we're going to have drones delivering your Amazon stuff to your house. In a couple of years, and that was probably 15 years ago. They're still saying that. In a couple of years, it's coming. Anyways, the founder of the company was, GA pilot, as well as a guy that had been involved in the RC airplane business. And so what I was trying to do is say, how can we get, if the UAS system's coming, how can we get it in a way that's not disruptive and doesn't take away the skies for the rest of us? How do us GA pilots not have to give up something to make space for them? And one of the things that they did with that was he's like, well, ADS-B's already coming. It's already out there. Can we get small ADS-B in drones just so they can be seen? And they developed a really small ADS-B chip. Come to find out, you develop a small ADS-B chip for a drone. Well, drones are low weight, low power is important for that. Come to find out, it's kind of the same thing us GA people want. So they got that technology small enough to fit basically inside of a light bulb replacement, and then built kind of the GA business around that. And a lot of people at the company are pilots too, so it's kind of been fun. So my Stinson, 90442 kilo, I bought, and it had already had a kind of the 6-pack layout with the right-hand radio stack. Somebody in the mid-90s did that. There was a hole here. Logbook say it was a LORAN system. I don't know, it didn't come with that, bummer. But so it kind of already lost that real retro, I love the retro styling of the original ones, but it gave me some space to play. Basic 6-pack had the the radio rack in it, had some vacuum instruments, Venturi driven off the tail. Honestly, they didn't work terribly well when it was new, and so I kind of started upgrading from there. I listed this in kind of my list of importance in my mind of upgrades or avionics that you might want to consider. First thing on my list is get ADS-B in. I'm guessing a lot of people here already have some sort of receiver and are flying with ForeFlight or Garmin Pilot or Avair or one of those. Truth be told, I was kind of when ADS-B started, the mandates started coming out, I was kind of against it. It's government doesn't need to know where I'm flying. This is, intrusion in my life. I'm kind of, I don't know, gonna stick it to the man. But the more I've flown with it, the more I've appreciated it. And honestly, I'm kind of to a point right now where if I don't have that in my plane, I don't feel that comfortable flying. You know, it's shown me like traffic that I didn't see. You know, it's like, hey, there's somebody half a mile from me and I don't see them. You know, and that's kind of So anyways, my pitch: get to ADS-B in, and that's kind of the first thing I do. uAvionix has a couple options that we sell in that space. First one, Sky Sensor. That replaces one of your wingtip lights, and it's ADS-B in receive. It works with most of the systems out there. Includes, you know, nav light, strobe light. We also make the Sentry ADS-B receivers that are sold by ForeFlight. We do the hardware; they market those. Sentries are nice, portable. There's 3 different variants of it. This is the regular one. It's $5.99, I think. The Mini, a little bit smaller, doesn't have batteries in it, so you got to plug it in. USB, and then the Plus has a screen. Other options on there, Stratus makes a great product. They've got one out there. If you have no ADS-B, the Stratux, consider it. It's like a DIY. You build it up with a Raspberry Pi parts. I don't know, 100. You can probably even do it cheaper than 170 if you're willing to scavenge, scavenge parts online. Kind of DIY. Garmin has one. It has a line of the GDL systems. The next important thing on my list was carbon monoxide detector for your airplane. It's kind of important to me. Right when I was doing my pilot training, there was a Dakota in western Iowa that crashed, and a guy killed himself and his family. And it was toxicology, it was carbon monoxide poisoning. The only plus side of that is, I don't think people were coherent when they crashed. So, anyways, not to get too morbid. Carbon monoxide detectors. The Sentry has one built in. It's built right into the unit, so if you buy these, comes with it. Otherwise, there's several other options out there in the field. I also have one of these. It's a SensorCom. There's a couple other brands that make them. I don't know, 150 bucks. You can get them on sale. Digital carbon monoxide detector. It'll beep and buzz if you've got carbon monoxide building up in your plane. There's some installed options. CO Guardian. There's a couple of them that are permanently installed in your panel to consider. The new Lightspeed Delta Zulu headsets, if anyone flies with Lightspeed, their newest high-end headset includes a carbon monoxide detector in it. It'll ding and buzz at you if you got a problem. I've heard good things about those. It's their flagship headset. They're like 1,200 bucks, but yeah. Anyways, they're nice. Yeah, it's airplane money. It's only one airplane unit. A little over one airplane unit, right? And then I did put up there the little spot cards. Honestly, don't use them. They're junk. The chances that you're going to be looking at that thing, if it's not in your primary field of view, the chances that you're going to watch that and realize you have a problem before it's too late, it's pretty low. So, anyways, my pitch for carbon monoxide detectors. Next piece, and again, I kind of put these in the order that I thought was kind of important for my flying. Next one I put is ADS-B out. Depending on where you're flying, that's maybe more or less important. ADS-B out on your airplane is required if you're in any transponder required space. So essentially A, B, and C airspace, and then above 10,000 feet, which honestly I've never brought my Stinson above 10,000 feet. I probably could, but I don't know, it gets scary too high. Anyways. But the other thing that does is not only does it give you access to that other airspace, that controlled airspace, but it does let you be seen by other aircraft flying, kind of the see and be seen. uAvionix has a few different options for ADS-B out. We've got the sky beacon and the tail beacon. The sky beacon replaces a wingtip light. Tail beacon replaces the tail light. Both of them will fit on the Stinson. My Stinson originally had the tail beacon. It's a simple install. It's power and ground is what gets connected, and it works with your existing transponder. So the King KT-76A that the plane came with worked with that, and essentially it sniffs the transponder output and then adds on the little ADS-B bits. About 2,100 bucks. Easy install, pretty simple. The next product that we have that I have on my plane now is the Tail Beacon X. That's the next generation. This is a entire transponder. So it doesn't like sniff off your existing transponder, it replaces your transponder. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's wild to me to, yeah. The cool thing about this is it uses 1090. Sorry, backing up a second. There are two different frequencies of ADS-B. There's 978 and 1090. The 1090 is required above 18,000 feet, which, yeah, I don't know if a 108 could get that high. I'm not going to try. Kind of doubt it. But anyways, but this also has the dual antennas, so it'll broadcast basically a pattern up and down. Canada, when their ADS-B mandate goes in place, they're using satellites to receive their ADS-B data instead of putting towers in. So you'll need an ADS. If you want to fly in Canada, you will in certain parts of Canada, you will likely need an ADS-B system that can broadcast up. And this can do that too. Too much Canada to be covered, just by towers. Kind of downside of this, like I said, this is your entire transponder, so you need a way to enter in squawk codes. Needs a control head. We've got a flight display that is your control head. In the experimental world, there's several other, the GRT, IFIS, MGLs, they can control it, advanced flight systems. A lot of those other systems can also be control heads for that. Certified world, we're still working with other people to bring it on board. There are certainly other options for ADS-B out. Sure.
The display, is that like the A30?
Yep, this is an AV30.
So you've got all that data and all that information along with being able to use that, so you can pair those together?
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah, you'd enter your squawk code through the AV30, as well as, and I'll talk a little bit about, I've got some AV30 stuff coming up. There's a lot of cool stuff, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm not tracking this, but what's the advantage of putting the transponder in the tail beacon as opposed to just having your transponder in the panel?
Honestly, for me, my big, couple things. Panel space for me, and I ended up putting a GPS in, Garmin GPS in the spot that was my transponder. So that was kind of my big play. It was like, oh, I get a chunk of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. Yeah, still have the radios. And I'll pull up some panel pictures in a second, kind of show you. But yeah, a lot of me is panel space. Like I said, I haven't flown in Canada. Maybe it'd be fun to do sometime. And my KT-76 was, ancient, but working. I mean, they work pretty darn well. There's some old ones that's still out there. There's still a lot of them working. That was a good product for them. The other upgrade that I wanted to do right away was a 4-place intercom for my Stinson. Like I say, flying with my daughters. If you are flying with kids, get an intercom that gives you like a backseat mute button too. Because my 5-year-old, bless their hearts, are singing along, and I was like, okay, this is enough. But anyways, I wanted to be able to talk with them when they're in the back seat. And there's certainly some considerations for that. The plane, when I bought it, had a SL40 that had a built-in 2-place intercom, but just to get the back seat. And I was looking at, okay, you can do, portable unit and just have wires strewn all over everywhere. I didn't want that. Some of the rentals I'd had that. It was just kind of a mess. I ended up doing a PS Engineering audio panel. uAvionix doesn't make audio panels, but I was kind of just walking you through what I did on my plane. And that's kind of where I, was a natural stopping point. I'd spent some money on the plane. I had ADS-B in and out, figured out. And that's kind of when I was like, okay, avionics is kind of this big money pit, or it certainly can be. And I equate it to back when I was in high school, I had a car that I paid like $200 for, and I had like $1,000 of stereo equipment in it. And I was like, yeah, you can do that with an airplane if you're not careful as well. So at that point, kind of a good stop point, be like, what is my mission for the airplane? And that's probably honestly, that was a hard thing for me when I was buying the Stinson. For years, I was like, well, what exactly do I want to do with this airplane? And then when I was doing avionics too, it's like, well, what exactly do I want to do with this airplane? A lot of our flying is, go with the family, we do a lot of pancake breakfasts, flying out for dinner, and beautiful VFR days. And you don't need a whole lot for that. I was sitting there, I was like, my attitude indicator kind of is junk, it's sticky, and it's, DG, the same thing. But it's like, well, technically you don't You don't actually need one of those to go find pancakes. In fact, our 108s were certified without one. They're not required instruments in our, on our data sheet anyways. But on the side, I'd gotten an instrument rating, a commercial rating, and so I looked at it, I'm like, well, if I own an airplane, do I want to be able to maintain and build my own proficiency in it? And that's kind of a tough decision to make. But what the heck? I figured, I'll do some more upgrades. Conveniently, about that same time I was making those decisions, I started with uAvionix. And they've got a lot of products, so it was actually kind of high on my list anyways. And working there, I got a lot of stuff for free, so that made it easier. Lo and behold, you don't have to pay money for stuff. Yeah. But that, I actually figured out that was kind of their scam, though. Like, I got there, and I was actually hired to work on some airport airspace projects, and I always put some AV30s in my plane, and then started running my mouth about features that I thought they needed, and they're like, oh, yeah, you should do those. So, like, oh yeah, you think there's some things you want to change? Why don't you? And I was like, that's how you got me. Anyways. Like I say, the plane came with some old attitude indications right off the Venturi. One of our products, we've got AV30. It's a replacement certified as primary attitude, directional gyro, and slip. Little unit, about yay big. And where I really, my first thing I said is get your ADS-B in, get your ForeFlight and your EFB to get a ton of data on that. And then it's like immediately as soon as I got that, it's like, oh, actually, I'm finding there's some really great advantages of getting that most important data right in front of you. ForeFlight's, I've got it on a RAM mount, it's right in front of my Stinson, right in front of me, but it's never part of my primary scan. My instrument scan, it's kind of every once in a while I glance over there. So to get some of the data that's right in front of you has been kind of nice. There were other options as well. I could have overhauled the existing ones, made them work better. You can certainly get new mechanical ones. Garmin makes some good products in the same space. Aspen's got some good products in the space as well. The same AV30 that does attitude indicator has a directional gyro mode. It's actually the exact same product. You just set in software which one and kind of how you want to use it. So the same set of stuff.
Is that changeable by user?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's an interesting discussion. If you are putting AV30s in an aircraft where you are replacing a required instrument, so if you're replacing a required attitude indicator, you have to lock that in attitude indicator only mode. With our Stinsons, we are not replacing a required instrument. Our Stinsons did not have, it is certified without either. So yeah, you are able to switch back and forth in flight. So
How long does it take to switch from one to the other? Is it just seconds?
Yeah, press and hold. I think it's a 3-second hold is the press and hold, 2 or 3 seconds, I don't.
Is there ever you have to reboot or anything when that happens? I mean, is there ever a glitch to that going back and forth?
Nope, you go back and forth. And if you're set up in DG mode, there's multiple pages, and the last page is always attitude indicator, and that's just as a reversionary mode, in case you're in the clouds and your attitude indicator kicks out, and you can always get to that with, no matter where you're at, within a couple button clicks, you can get to attitude. Couple accessories that I then added to the AV30. One of them is a remote magnetometer. It's basically an electronic compass, and that means I don't have to set the DG, adjust the DG anymore. It locks into compass. On our Stinsons, my preference was to put this in the tail because it's super easy. You take the little fabric, the fabric out of the baggage compartment. It's super easy to get back there. However, it's a steel fuselage, and I found out when I put it in the tail that north always pointed towards my comm antenna that was back there. Steel is a magnet, so that was not a great spot. Out in the wing is kind of the better spot for a Stinson. It's aluminum spars and aluminum ribs in our wings. My wings were metallized, but again, aluminum, not steel. Anyways, that's outside air temp probe it was also an add-on. It's a Davtron part that we sell, and we're compatible with it. You can get that on Aircraft Spruce. We're not like locking in, oh, you gotta buy ours. No, just go buy the other one on the market. And that gives me true airspeed and obviously temperature and density altitude calculation. The way with my flying, that's interesting in only a couple spots. It's one, okay, what is the temperature? Am I, is icing flying in the winter is like, oh, how worried am I about icing? And then the other thing is like when we're flying down here and like descending into Gaston's, let me know how hot it was. It's like, I don't know why it was. We hit a layer and all of a sudden there's hot air coming out the vents. I was like, oh, what are we doing? Anyways, I had a number to know it was hot. Anywho, true airspeed calculations on a Stinson is kind of a fun number to have, but not super relevant, frankly, to the kind of flying. Yeah, I set it up for miles an hour too, because it makes me feel like I'm going really fast, compared to knots. It's way better. Anyways, the other product that we have is the AV20. When I bought the Stinson, it had an analog clock on it that wasn't working. And again, I was like, I kind of want to get to a point where I can do, maintain IFR proficiency, and that still requires a clock, an actually physically installed clock. We've got the AV20, which is a NORCE approved certified clock replacement. Gives you also backup attitude, just a little guy. We've had a lot of people to mention, have had other systems, so just throw one of those in the plane, just as kind of even as a last ditch, like, hey, I've got an independent attitude source if I need it. Fits in a 2-inch hole or 2.25-inch hole. Attitude, it's got various timers in it. You can engine run times, kind of nice. Keeps me lets me know kind of when to change fuel tanks. I can watch the clocks on that.
Does that also work with the electronic fuel gauge senders?
It does not. It does not work with the fuel gauge senders yet.
Is that something to work on?
Perhaps. AV20 has been an interesting and neat product for us, but we approved it under NORCE, which is a FAA non-required safety enhancing equipment. And their limitation is the ability to connect that to required equipment gets really tricky. On an experimental aircraft, you can control a transponder with that. In fact, it can. But we can't do that on a certified plane because it's like, well, we're not going to let you control a certified product, of required equipment with a basically optional accessory. And that's the same thing with fuel. If you start getting into fuel, we could do it as advisory, but not as primary fuel gauge without.
My question is, I was talking to a company that makes us fuel gauges. They said they have an analog digital model.
Mm-hmm.
So you can continue to have your analog output to your original OEM gauges and then have a supplemental digital.
Yep, yeah, and that's probably if we could bring fuel into that, it would be a not a certified replacement for your primary gauges. But yeah, some of those new gauges or the new senders are way better. I don't know that I trust the senders in my plane terribly, to be super accurate. I'm just fly by time, more so than fly by time. Check it before I take off. But anyways, that's a long way of saying there's kind of some work on changing the certification basis of that product. NORCE was an interesting program the FAA did, but it's got some limitations. It's like, would we have been better off to actually just go through formal, kind of the longer cert stuff? And that opens up a lot of different possibilities for a product in that size. Then kind of the next upgrade I did was GPS navigator, and here's kind of where my panel ended up with. Again, getting the transponder out of that gave me some extra panel space, and I bought a Garmin GPS 175. Wasn't too, as far as navigators go, wasn't a lot of money, but still like $5K. And that's where I ended up with. Just a note on avionics upgrades for the Stinson. One thing you do have to work around is there's a pretty big control column that comes, that goes right across the middle of that. So where I've got that little portable, it's only a couple inches thick, and that's all the depth that you have at that spot, because that's where the control yoke, when when you pull forward is kind of coming in. I'd actually found out when I put the AV30s in the panel, the original vacuum instruments, the hoses for it were actually hitting, the control column was hitting the hoses for it. I don't know how any A&P ever signed that off, but once I removed those, I was like, wait, I get another inch of elevator travel. Like, that was a little scary, but anyways, these are much thinner, so you do not have those impinging. I was like, gosh, how many people have done an annual on this and never, anyways. Kind of next up, what I want to, some next stuff to add to my Stinson. We've got an accessory for the AV30 called the AV Link, and it adds wireless capabilities to it. I think, Jody, you've got one in your plane already. I just haven't gotten a free one from them yet. I need to. Anyways, what that does is one, it's the ability to update your AV30's wireless, but it adds the traffic display, the ability to display traffic right on your instrument. And honestly, I'll say I was like, it's a neat product, and I kind of said, yeah, it's kind of I was not sold on the product. I was like, why do I want traffic on my instrument when I have an iPad right next to it, like that displays traffic? And I've kind of become a convert on that. Flying company planes around. Here's one of our 172 that I fly around, and I've got an AV30 in there as traffic display. And what I found out on that is ForeFlight never, for whatever reason, never became within my instrument scan. Especially flying this plane, I've got it on my lap, and I'm just not looking down there. But getting the traffic kind of up into that scan has been nice. So I'm kind of subconsciously keeping an eye on traffic moving around. And some of that gets, and so one feature that I added to the AV30, and I'm going to use it for me, and I hope somebody else wants it. Otherwise, is my plane doesn't have an extra hole. I want a traffic display, but I'm kind of out of spots. So the last release, I added a vertical speed indicator to the side of it. So then I'm going to replace my vertical speed indicator with traffic. Vertical speed's not required on the Stinson either. In fact, it's not required on any. Maybe there's a minimum equipment list that has it in it, but vertical speed indicator is not in 91205. It's not required equipment for IFR or VFR flight.
Where does it get its signal from? You said it's wireless, like with a Century or?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. That'll connect to. Can display from Stratus, from Century, from Sky Sensor. Your Stratux will work with it. Kind of the long. It'll basically work with all of them, but the Garmin ones, and they encrypt their data. So. The next up piece that I'm working on right now is an accessory that gets glide slope and IFR navigation right on the AV30s. The IFR navigators use a protocol called ARINC 429. It's an older two-wire differential signal system that the AV30 doesn't have. So we've got an accessory that you can connect ARINC in and then connects the AV30, wires to the AV30 on the other side. And that lets you get IFR capable glide slope and course guidance on the AV30. And you can display that in a variety of ways. It can show up on your attitude indicator page, on as an HSI page. We've got a map, kind of a moving map display that'll show your flight plans. Sure.
So you mentioned several new features. So if you buy an AV30 today and new features come out tomorrow, can you download the new software?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So we're releasing a new software build, a couple times a year, twice a year, maybe something like that. And always adding new features, new stuff.
How do you go about that?
Yep, so they're on our website. For a certified airplane, there's a service bulletin out there that you go through. There's kind of two ways to load software into new AV30. You can load it wirelessly if you've got this adapter. Essentially, you connect to this, and it's a web page you go to. Or it's done over serial. There's two of these pins on the back. You wire to a serial connector, and I probably somewhere have a connector. But it's in the service bulletin. And yeah, always rolling out new features. This last one, like I say, we added the vertical speed to our traffic display, added rate of turn indication as well. I don't know if I have it in any of our pictures.
Are those mandatory, those upgrades?
Nope. No, service bulletins, in general, service bulletins in a Part 91 aircraft, not required. do them. I mean, we release them for, release both fixes and new features. So I recommend doing them, but now they're, in fact, even if we put, you know, mandatory super, if you see a service bulletin that's like mandatory super duper required, on a Part 91 aircraft it is not required, you know, that is your choice. Obviously the manufacturers put them out for a reason, but the only way it becomes mandatory is if there's if we issue an airworthiness directive with it, which is always an option. As a manufacturer, we can either nudge the FAA we can request the FAA to do that, or they can issue it on their end too, initiate from either side.
So does the HSI and the wireless locks, can they both connect to the same UV30?
Yeah, question on that. So the wireless adapter literally like connects to the back. Someone got clever there. This doesn't. This actually ends up just getting wired. You know, screw this someplace where you've got spot behind your panel, and then this will actually connect up to 4 AV30s. So you run 2 wires to one, 2 wires to the next, and this just gets in some random spot in your panel. And we looked at doing a stack on the back of it, but eventually we're like, at what point do you end up failing vibration? And it's kind of fun. I spent a while at a lab doing the environmentals where you do like crash safety. You put this on a rig that shocks it with a bunch of G-force or vibration table, sits there and shakes it. It's like, no, you're hurting my baby. But anyways, it's part of the testing we do.
Pilot can, just to verify, pilot can update the software on a certified unit versus even for a non-required or a required instrument as a required instrument, not have to do that avionics shop and things like that.
You will want, you can update the software. You will need an A&P to sign it, basically sign implementing the service bulletin. Throw it in your logbook as essentially a minor change. Does not require an IA, does not require a repair station or an instrument shop to do the work, but you do want to have, essentially our service bulletin is written to, here's all the update steps, and then the last step is verify, let the version that's printed in your system is the version that's in the service bulletin, and that step needs to be done by, or should be done by an A&P. I'm hoping, yeah. Because this is actually the last piece I need to be able to fly approaches in my Stinson, which to me is kind of wild. You know, in 1947 when they made that plane, did they ever think you could do an LPV instrument approach with, GPS approach with it? Hopefully by the end of the year. Actually, we were hoping to do it by Oshkosh. We gave the FAA a massive data, big old chunk of data in, end of March, early April, and we're hoping to be an Oshkosh approval. I don't know. That's being recorded. It'll be nice, but it takes. They're doing their due diligence. They're doing their due diligence as a regulator to make sure the product is safe. Well, there you go. I'll put that on recording. Sure.
So, how would you actually get the GPS data into that? Is it through like a pan-mounted GPS, or can it take it from a common?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so how do you get the GPS data in? The AV30 out of the box with no other accessories can connect to a GPS. It can connect to either your portables, the original Garmin GPS Map 296 that I had connected in, or it can connect through serial to 430, basically any of your aviation GPSs. But that serial format does not include. It's kind of missing 2 key pieces of data for IFR flight. It's glide slope is not sent over that serial format, and then the scaling factor for your lateral deviation is not sent. It'll tell you how many, it'll give you a nautical miles off center, but it does not provide the data to tell you, how significant that is.
Can it take it from like a full flight or iPad?
Not yet. Stay tuned. That's kind of another thing that's on the docket is a lot of people don't want to go buy a $800 portable GPS, but a lot of people are flying with ForeFlight, and so the ability to pull data off of that's Come to Oshkosh next year. I'm hoping that's a thing we'll be able to show. Hearing it here first. Other questions on avionics stuff? Sure.
So I have a Starduster 2 that I put an AV30 with the tail beacon X in it.
Oh, fantastic.
But I didn't have any exterior wiring, so no lights or anything.
Mm-hmm.
What I did, you tell me if this is something, maybe I shouldn't, but there's a behind the rear seat, there's a little cubby there and a wooden wall. And I drilled a hole in that wall and created a box and put it inside fabric.
In the tail of a fabric airplane?
Yeah,
Sure.
so just right inside there, and put the tail beacon X down. So far, it works perfectly.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people
Any
have.
problem with that?
Yeah, a lot of people have done it. It works well. I'll say from a certified airplane doing that, I mean, it's not in our STC, it's not in our installation process, so whoever's doing your install has to sign it. That's fine, but many people have done that. With Starduster, it's an experimental airplane, knock stuff out, but no, a lot of people do that in a fabric airplane. Kind of one kind of tidbit for this too is originally we had the ability to turn the light off for that reason. Like people would put it, in the back of a tube airplane. As we went through the certification process, FAA's like, no, if you're replacing a light, you can't let people turn off their light or whatever. So actually the light's always on. And so some people with fabric airplanes, it's like glowing back. You fly at night and you got this nice glow through your fabric, which is kind of cool looking, I guess. I don't know. But to overcome that, some people have put some electrical tape over the light, and called it good. Anyways, yeah, no, that works.
I had a plane that had a couple of G5 stacked, and I always didn't really care for how they were protruding off their panel and, big square boxes. And so I was introduced to the AV30, and I decided to put one in Stinson, although it was before the X, or the tail beacon X came out, which I'd like to change to that now. But what I really liked about it is it's a round gauge, very small, didn't have a whole bunch of stuff protruding out the back end of the panel. And it really kept a classic look of the panel, which is, like these classic planes, which is the reason why I went with AV30s. And after I did that, we put them in everything we have.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Rental planes, and they all got AV30s. So.
Thanks. Yeah. We tried to get a pretty simple install to fit the same hole. You're usually not cutting metal, to do it. Minimum pitot-static power and ground is the minimum what you have to connect, and then from there you can add accessories. So
it was a lot less money to buy that than to buy, just a G5 with another transponder, with the ASB and all that stuff. Just click through page 4 is where you put in your squawk code, and it's super simple.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, with our latest a software ago, we allowed the ability to set squawk code from any of our pages too. Really? You can add it as an overlay in one of the data positions. Maybe worth. I'll give you a quick. And one last plug, and then I'll probably get out of here for you guys.
It was about half the price to go with that whole setup than what it was to do a traditional setup.
Let me just pick a random. You see him kind of behind the scenes. Yeah, one thing, if you are considering an AV30, we do have a simulator for it. It's on our website. It's free. Go grab it. But yeah, you can set squawk code. Any of these overlay spots are configurable. You can kind of choose what data to have in what spot. There it was. And so you can put your squawk on your main page, and then it shows up as you click the center button in your list of things you can do there too. Or just flip to your last page. I kind of do both, interchangeably. How's it going?
You mentioned when you tried to put your magnetometer, or whatever you call it, in the tail because of all the steel that didn't work too well. With the V77 having steel spars, is that probably an airplane you just probably can't use that the
It really kind of depends. And honestly, the easiest way to figure it out, go get a compass, like the cheapest trail compass, Boy Scout compass you can find. Go spend $10 on Amazon, and go bring that compass to where you might consider putting the magnetometer. And if you kind of have somebody, move the flight controls around while you hold it there, turn on and off all your lights, and if you're seeing the needle start you know, as you move it close to your spar, the needle starts pointing at the spar no matter where. Bad spot. But it can correct a lot of the interference if it's steady state. Where it really struggles is if you've got some kind of, like, oh, look, every time my in my case, it was, oh, every time the radio transmits, the antenna, you know, north becomes where the antenna is, you know, and that's, you can't fix that. Or, hey, every time the strobe goes off, the thing jumps 40 degrees off center or something like that. But that's the trick. You can.
So if you've got even a portable GPS, like I've got.
Yeah, your 660 in yours, right?
Yeah, I've got an Aero 660 that is, if I can take it out of this plane, put it in the other plane, I wouldn't even need that if I'm pulling a GPS signal to the AV30.
Oh, the mag?
Yeah.
Your choice. Yeah, that's another a good question too. The AV30, you can choose what its heading source is. You can choose GPS or directional gyro. The one kind of caveat to that is a GPS track is your ground track over the ground, which is a lot of times when that's exactly what you want. But if you're flying in a heavy crosswind, so you're crabbed into it, the GPS is showing your track over the ground, not the direction your nose is going, which frankly only becomes relevant with our flying if you're giving a heading by ATC. They are expecting that. They will actually in their minds be like, oh, it's really windy out. We'll add, you know, if I really want you to go east, I'm going to tell you to fly, you know, whatever, 120 or something. But yeah, you can just leave it to GPS track, which for like our flying down here, when I was literally flying a GPS line down here, that's actually kind of what then I didn't have to do the crab myself. I was like, no, I'll just keep the nose pointed up, and that's all I had to do. So, sure.
One of the things I like about your web tip version is that you have the VFR privacy mode. The tail beacon X, I assume is a modus transponder, and you can't set it to modus C.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. And the comment there is on if you're doing a 978 UAT system, you can set an anonymous mode up in it. And essentially, if you're squawking 1200, it sends out your position, but it does not send out your tail number to the ADSB system. For a 1090, there is no anonymous mode in 1090. It's sending your tail number or your ICAO code all the time. I guess be aware too, though, with anonymous mode, it will go into anonymous mode if it is receiving, if the tail beacon is receiving from your transponder. If it's not, it will actually send out your tail number. So if you're putting in anonymous mode to do stuff you shouldn't do, just be warned there's, the FAA has ways of still finding you, you know. They can hunt you down at the airport you landed at or whatever. But other questions?
So does the tail beacon X, can that receive from a transponder if you've already got one installed? Or?
Nope, you can do one or the other. Yeah, that is a full-up transponder. You can have two installed, but you know you need to have kind of one on at a time if you want to have multiple transponders. You know, I've had like a guy in a Baron that I was talking to, he's kept his original transponder, but he's like, well, I'm going to have this and I'm going to use it, you know, when I'm in Canada or whatever. So, okay. Cool. If not, thank you everyone for your time. Yes, thank you.